Why there, geezer, it's Jules here from FGS, home of the Future Games Show, and you know what? As a Warhammer fan, I've been eating pretty bloody well at the moment. I mean, Warhammer 40k 10th edition has just dropped onto the tabletop, and we've got the likes of Rogue Trader and Space Marine 2 peeking their way over the horizon. But you know what? It's not the only Warhammer game that you should be excited for, because I've been lucky enough to play some behind-the-scenes preview content for an upcoming Age of Sigmar title, Warhammer Age of Sigmar Realms of Ruin. This is an upcoming RTS skirmish game being made by Frontier Developments, and let me tell you, my friend, there's some right cunning tactics going on here in the realm of Ghur. Now, for those of you not in the know, Age of Sigmar, or AOS as it's known, is the fantasy/medieval arm of Games Workshop's tabletop games, and now, thanks to Realms of Ruin, it's got its first outing in video game form, meaning that players can take up the mantle of the mighty Stormcast Eternals or wallow in the muck like a smelly little grot with the Cruel Boys. And you know what? I got my hands on both during the preview session. Now, for total clarity, at the preview event, I got to see a small snippet of the single-player campaign and then got to have 3 back-to-back multiplayer matches, and yes, I won all 3, and yes, I am smug about it. Now, first up was the single-player experience, which familiarised me with the control scheme and key units of the Stormcast Eternals. Thanks to a responsive camera, easy and intuitive HUD, plus the unit skills being explained each time you select to activate them, I was quickly able to tell what units were best for each situation, and within a short while, I had wiped away the Cruel Boy ambush squads that dared oppose me. The sight of seeing a small but well-trained unit of Stormcast Eternals smash the stank off of some dirty orcs was a sight to behold, and was actually as lore-friendly as it was fun to play. And even when they bust out the hulking Troggoths, with a quick bit of tactical repositioning, I was able to fell the mighty beast in the name of Sigmar. Bookending the experience was a tale of Stormcasts that were deep behind enemy lines, and thanks to the script being penned by legendary Black Library author Gavin Thorpe, it promises to bristle with tension. In fact, it was during the opening cinematic for this little short experience that I saw something pretty surprising. A Stormcast with personality.
Death comes for everyone.
And yes, I know it's a bit of a meme in the community, but the Stormcast Eternals aren't exactly known for their vivacious personalities, and even less for their humour.
Eventually. Except us.
And this makes the rather light exchanges between the group feel unique and rather intriguing, and especially so because over time the Anvil of Sigmar will remove these humanistic traits as the warriors are reforged over and over again. Now, after a short break, the group and I switched over to the multiplayer session, and I too switched things up by going from keyboard and mouse over to a gamepad, just so I could test out the direct step feature, which is a mechanic that's been heavily advertised in this game as being a precise way to control your troops using a controller. And then I was given the choice of both Stormcast Eternals and Cruel Boys factions in a race to deplete my opponent's resource bar. Now, this was achieved by either destroying units, capturing arcane waypoints, or wresting control of resource points from my opponent. Now, while I've experienced most of these facets before in skirmish games, there were a few twists that I noticed that gave Realms of Ruin a rather unique appeal. For starters, each capture point also dictates how much fog of war is present in the surrounding area, and while it's easy to rush from newly captured points to the next, doing so would actually mean that a thick shroud covers most of the area and could potentially hide certain units in. Which, if I just check my notes over here, oh yes, is exactly what the Cruel Boys love to do. So, in order to actually get the most of your surroundings, you're going to need to plant your standard and then plant your feet for a little bit just to uncover that fog of war. And trust me, there was a fair few times that my opponent would just suddenly appear out of nowhere and I'd be like, yep, okay, this is a problem. And you can also build structures on top of these resource points, which again adds a slight tactical nuance to the experience. Now, at first I thought to myself that the one and only important structure would be those that actually help me mine resources quicker, but as enemies came out of the fog or captured these bases quickly, I soon learnt that I had to balance mining with expanding the fog of war to keep an eye on their actions and to also damage them with repelling spells and traps. And speaking of enemies, the unit types that I got to preview felt varied and as powerful as they do on the tabletop, with huge winged draconic guards soaring overhead before slamming down into the ground and lumbering Troggoths smashing apart smaller infantry. Now, of the 3 multiplayer matches that I took part in, I found that a clump and rush style gameplay usually resulted in a beleaguered force that couldn't hold on to any point for long, because as soon as I moved off of the point, it would soon be captured, leaving me stuck in one location with too much power consolidated in 2 small small an area. And as such, it's interesting to embrace the skirmish aspect of this title, of sending smaller groups of units out there to capture resources or just harangue the enemy to make sure that they're constantly on the back foot. I found that the way to win most of my matches wasn't to just have a huge clump of units and just push them around the board. It was to actually split people off, sometimes just down to a single man, go over there, capture resource points, make sure that there was always a threat to my enemy that they had to respond to, and all the while I would build up the resources of the few that I captured near my base and drain them of theirs. I especially enjoyed this tactic with the Cruel Boys, as it totally worked with their lore of sending expendable hobgrots into the murk, capturing and raiding before fleeing as soon as my enemy had diverted their forces to try and stop me. And all of this was incredibly easy to pull off thanks to the direct step feature, as I could chain orders together with just a few button presses, then dictate whether units would engage directly with enemies or wait on the fringe to fire in support shots later, and it also gave me precise positioning options which were dictated by the level of zoom that I was watching the battle from, meaning that if I closed in on the action, I could pivot units around on a dime that were then ready to face the coming horde. Plus, at this level, I could enjoy all of the animations which were smooth and detailed, and whilst not being on the overwhelming scale of the likes of Total Warhammer 3, really do commit to the feeling of desperate battles between small armies. But you know what, of all of this, I was just so happy to see the Cruel Boys in action. I absolutely love them as a faction in the tabletop game, so to see them here complete with their dodgy East End London or Cockney accents was just brilliant. They're yelling at each other, they're falling over each other, they're using just stupid verbose language. I love it, it's just so silly.
Protect the bastion! We need the loot!
However, I will mention that for all of the fun that I had, if you're looking for this game to hit with the same tactical nuance as the Total Warhammer titles, you may be left a little wanting, as this can often boil down to a trial and error battle system that rewards point capture far more than it does thinking too much about which units to bring to the table. There's meant to be this rock, paper, scissors dynamic here where certain units are strong against others and weak against others, but I did find that come the late game, because I usually had amassed so many resource points, I just bought the top tier units and just slung everything up the board. My opponent couldn't do much against that because you're basically hitting them with tier 3 things and they're usually struggling just with tier 1 and 2. So yeah, kind of mop the floor there with this clump and dump mentality. Therefore, it would be nice to see the developers put some tweaks to the units to really force you to run a well-balanced army. Plus, some might find the decision for units to remain engaged with enemies until they're defeated a rough learning curve, as with a poor charge, you'll be locked in battle with a unit while you just have to watch others decimate your forces. The ability to change targets on the fly would make for a more dynamic response system, yet this may actually be a purposeful decision in order to make you weigh up your options before diving in. Still, it was always a little bit infuriating to push forward with your greatest units only to have them just be like, hey look, a tiny unit over there that I could easily squash. Better focus on them while everyone else just gets a pass. I'll finish them off first and then I'll join the battle. It's like, no, you're the elite of the elite. Why are you dealing with some peasants? Come on, mate, get back in the game. I would have also liked to see the realm of Ghur itself play more of a part in the online matches, as the realm is known for being extremely deadly. By having poison pits, gnarl woods that maybe grab at your units, or even wildlife that stalks you alongside your enemy, well, the world would have felt more alive, and then a greater sense of strategy and planning would have been required. But as things stand, Realms of Ruin seems to be a perfect entry point for those looking to dip their toes into the RTS genre. It handles well, incredibly easy to control using a gamepad, and also has a ton of variety and spice that doesn't need to have too much tactical nuance to get the most out of it. And it is hitting the market with a ton of character and some brilliantly realised units, and I for one can't wait to see how the single player story shapes out as well. And you can expect more coverage on this title, including potentially some live streams of this game when it drops here on FGS, home of the Future Games Show. But until then, I've been Jules, and I really hope that you've enjoyed this first impressions and gameplay feature on Realms of Ruin. Let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. And if you want to chat to me further on the social medias, you can do so by going over here, where I'm at RetroJ, but the O is a 0, and I am aka Egg Daddy or Egg Daddy Jules. I cannot bloody remember this on TikTok. Go follow me over there. I promise I'll put out more videos sometime in the near future. Maybe. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. For you see, even though we've spoken today about some proper cunning tactics by the Cruel Boys and the Stormcast Eternals, there is one strategy that we should all apply in our day-to-day lives, and that is just to be kind to ourselves, because we deserve the best things in life, like love, happiness, and success, and don't let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise, alright? You are a massive ledge. right? And I want you to go out there and smash your life goals today, like a Troggoth swamping through the mire, bashing people around, and turning the Sigmarite warriors just into little tiny coins. Flatten them down with the power of positivity. Very violent, I know, but you get the idea. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.